if that event was being broadcast live, right?
Yes.
How many people in the state of Florida knew where the president was at that specific point in time?
Basically, the entire population that watched the TV news. It was a big event.
Okay, all right. So if, in fact, he was being informed that the second plane had hit, America's under attack, right, isn't he then putting everybody in his immediate circle at great risk? Including that school full of elementary students. That's what I'm talking about, yeah. Yeah, so it would seem to me that upon the revelation of that news, that the Secret Service would grab the president and remove him as if he were on fire from that room. Well, you're right, and he was only about 10 minutes away from a major airport. I mean, and they were saying they thought there were hijackers all over the country, and everyone's in incredible fear. But George Bush, he just sits there after he's told the second plane is hit for around 20 minutes and then kind of just ambles out, taking his time. Of course, some Secret Service did say, let's get him out, and then Card and others just said, no, we're going to stay. I wonder what they knew. You know, it's funny, Jeb Bush declared martial law 3 days before, too, and that was kind of kept just a little bit quiet as well. Did Jeb Bush ever explain why? No, he wouldn't say why, and Bush wouldn't say why. They had massed 44,000 U.S. troops, 18,000 British troops in Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, and had carrier attack groups about to launch their attacks on Afghanistan, and he had that order signed on his desk just waiting 2 days before 9/11. That was incredibly convenient to have your whole military stacked up and ready to go into Afghanistan, something that took about 6 months to build up, I'm told. Yeah, because you don't really put those strategies together overnight, do you? No, and they had the troops in place. For a major invasion, no. No, those are really well calculated and really well planned, at least from this government. Well, you're right. But let me ask you this. In a statement that the president made following, I think it was a school kid that asked him, what did you think when the first plane hit? And he said something to the effect of, I was watching it on TV like everybody else, and I thought, oh, gosh, that's pilot error, correct? Yes. So I guess one of the perks of being president is you get access to TV channels that don't exist in the known universe, correct? That's right. He said, yeah, I saw it on TV, the first plane hit, and I thought that guy's got to be a terrible pilot. Then his spokesman, a day later, because the San Francisco Chronicle did the whole timeline, his spokesman said, no, he never saw that. He didn't mean that. He wasn't even aware the first building had been hit when he went out to give the speech. But then the Times of London and AP had photos of him watching the first tower smoking after it had been announced there in the green room. So we also have a lot of lying going on. Yeah, it might lead to believe that he'd seen similar images in some type of a rehearsal, as it were. Yes. What did you think of the guns being taken from the pilots just a few months before in July, the federal law being changed by Bush so pilots couldn't carry firearms? That's a little convenient, isn't it? Because that was instituted post-Cuban Missile Crisis, correct? Yes, sir. Yeah, so that had been in place for almost 40 years. It's right in there with, I guess it was June or July of 2001, when after 46 years, Cheney changed the authorization for the shoot-down orders. Oh, that's right. Since NORAD was set up in the late 50s, generals and admirals had standing shoot-down orders of errant aircraft like Payne Stewart. They were ready in that case a few years before. But magically, he took the power away from all the generals and only gave it to himself and to his adjunct, the Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld. Yeah. Yeah. No, again, I'm not on your show to say who did it or why, because I don't have those answers. Yeah, we just shouldn't have an investigation by their very people that turns out to be a whitewash. I mean, the 9/11 Commission, we talked yesterday about how the Commission claimed there weren't even support pillars in the middle of Tower 1 and 2 when it had the biggest columns in the world up until that time. Yeah, it had how many? 47. 47, that's right, yeah. And it would seem to me, just based on what we've all seen, those images that are indelibly emblazoned into our memories forever, Again, I don't have experience in avionics or, high-rise, mechanics, but it looked like the majority of the jet fuel upon impact exploded.
Yes, it did.
So I have a hard time believing that a fireball traveled down the elevator over 1,100 feet and still had the explosive energy to destroy the lobby like it was described.
Well, we can fill a 2-hour film just with quick cuts of different firefighters and police saying they saw bombs going off. But then they were told to shut up, and then they did these after-action video reports with the firemen and police, and then the government declared national security on those tapes. Then they declared that they were destroyed. Then with a congressional order, some got released. And what are the firemen and police saying on the tapes? That they saw bombs going off in all 3 of the buildings.
Yeah, and this one guy in that famous clip talks about it. Looked like one of those, boom, 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 controlled detonations.
In fact, we have that clip. Now, there's 2 in the computer, John, so be careful. One hasn't been edited and has the cussing. Don't air that one. Be careful. Be sure, because last time we almost had a mistake. Can you find the one where the firefighters are saying, it looked as if they had detonators? Are you talking about that one?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And then now there are films that have come out, and of course I have all these clips, but there are films that just have that are an hour and a half of just that, Charlie.
Yeah.
Of just different firemen saying that.
Sure, and again, this is not you and I watching the video, speculating about what we think we saw. These are gentlemen, inside the buildings at the very point of collapse.
Let's go ahead and roll that next clip. Here it is.
Sure.
We made it outside. We made it about a block.
We made it at least 2 blocks, and we started running. Floor by floor, it started popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Detonated.
Take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running. Just ran up West. And then you just sort of, this cloud of chasing you down.
Could not run it.
West Street. I could not run it.
So what'd you do?
I jumped behind a battalion car. I hit under the car. I was waiting to die.
So, Mr. Sheen, what do you think we should do then? I mean, just as a citizen, you have that right. What do you think we should do? I mean, what would be a real investigation? What would satisfy you, who, according to most Americans in major polls, a CNN poll, 90%, a Zogby poll, 49%, take whatever poll you want, but more than half of Americans in major polls want some type of real investigation. What would you like to see?
I would like to see the same thing. I think it's got to be headed by, if this is possible, some neutral investigative committee.